Doing well today. Ready to get cranked up in football. We get out there for our first practice today, so we're pretty excited about that. Got 29 opportunities to get on the field to improve ourselves, practice as a team, and get ready to to kick off this season. And I'm excited. The attitude that our team has. We have some young players on the roster. With only, I think, 12 seniors on the roster. So we have a young football team, but we have some guys that have played some football in the past, that have been out there on the field, that have experience playing, and I want to see the energy that we attack this training camp with, the energy that we go out there, and the passion that we have every single day to improve as players and improve as a football team, and go out there and make this a successful football season.
Question, you get a mic to you.
Coach, with the expanded schedule, the thing you plan starting as early as you could on July 25th, how do you space things out over the coming weeks?
Well, you know what, and I've talked to other coaches, and I think we're one of the earliest starting teams in the country, but everything that we did actually was based off player safety. So the first thing I did is I threw a calendar down in front of our give calendar Dan Jacoby, our head trainer, to Nick Savage, head strength coach. I said, don't worry about school, don't worry about anything else, don't worry about installation schedule. Let's look on player safety, player health, player recovery. How would you spread out the practices? I took that information and then I tried to apply it with, combining it with the installation from the coaches of how they'd like to install, and then combine that kind of with the summer school class schedule, the fall school class schedule, and everything to come up, and this is what we came up with. So, we'll, for example, this week we're two practices. We'll practice the next 2 days in Hellman's, then we'll take a day off. Then we will go without practice. Then we'll go 3 days with shoulder pads. Then we'll take a day off. And so what it is kind of building and creating a lot of recovery days in between for health, and recovery.
Dan, just from a strictly football standpoint, is it more challenging to spread out camp like this and not have 2 days, or is it just different?
I think it's different. I'll have a better feeling having never done it. Even my wife will ask, hey, okay, what day are you gonna be able to come home for dinner any day? And I'm like, on the schedule, it looks like I might be able to. I guess there's days on the new schedule that the players are completely off. Like we can't even do a life skills meeting with them. So I don't know. I guess we'll do some extra film study or go play golf, or I don't know what we'll do that day. As a staff, I got to figure out what to do. So it'll be a big learning curve for us in what goes on this year, and whether we like it or not, and how it goes. There are concerns. There's in the middle of training camp, there's no school, there's no anything, and the players have the whole day off. They don't do any football. Can't even do a life skills presentation with them, nothing. So I hope they're well behaved that day, because we can't even be around them. So I guess go to the beach, but it's a long drive from here.
Hey, Dad, you mentioned Elgin Jenkins would be probably the center this fall. What makes him the right guy for that position?
I think his versatility in what he brings to the table. He's a guy that has played tackle, played guard for us. He's a veteran guy and a pretty smart football player. So a guy that can get us with all the right calls made for the line and put everybody in the right position. And he has the athletic ability to be able to do it.
Stick with the offensive line. What's going to be the starting point for each position?
I don't know. We'll see. I'll check with Coach Hev today and see. But to me, you guys get out there. We'll always, with the offensive line, mix and match combinations throughout training camp. It's a great thing if at the end of the year you start the same 5 guys on the offensive line for every single game. That's a pretty positive thing, and then also have the ability to roll some guys through If we can stay that healthy, that'll lead to a very successful year usually. If not, we have to be prepared for guys getting used to playing with each other. So we'll do is get guys ready and then try to figure out what the best combination of players is. There's, if you look at a Martinez ranking, you're looking at Elkin Jenkins that have played a whole bunch. You feel pretty confident about those guys. The next, there's a bunch of guys that we expect to be in the rotation that haven't played a whole lot. So they still will see over the next 29 practices how they improve and get themselves ready.
Gabe Miles had a little bit of struggle last year at times. Just what did you see in the offseason and spring, his progress going into his senior year?
Well, I think going into senior year, like a lot of guys, that kind of attacking the year and being desperate for your senior season. There's I think for everybody, there's now, I don't know, a light at the end of the tunnel. There's just an end of the tunnel coming of an end of your career coming football-wise. For a lot of guys, they hope it goes beyond that. But I think a lot of guys, as they get into their senior year, they realize, hey, there's a couple months left, and that could be the end of football. And, what am I going to do in those couple months to maximize my career? And it's easy to say. You look at young guys all the time, and they realize, hey, I only have this many games to play, and it comes. But until you get to the point where you say, this is it. This is potentially the last season I play football. It's hard to get that desperateness. And Gabe, as a guy, I think he's worked hard and realizes that, I've that kind of that desperate feeling of I got to finish my career the right way.
And you got a chance to go through spring with Ty Grantham, so you guys have kind of meshed a little bit. How is that relationship building between you two, and how do you expect that to go in the fall camp?
Great. I think Todd's one excellent football coach, very, very extremely knowledgeable. I think he's fit in really well to the staff and is, but also is extremely professional in understanding, of what he needs to do to get his defense to be successful, as well as what my expectations are within the program. And, I think his professionalism and experience has helped and merged really well. And, I'm excited to see our defense play this season.
You have a couple of remaining signees that have yet to hit the campus. Can you provide any update on them?
We should know. We'll see here over the next couple days how things work out, and as everybody keeps finishing up academics, and as we wait on NSA paperwork to get completed, everybody's pretty random. We'll let you know as we hear updates. There's no new updates on anybody.
You talked about, obviously, you touched on Donald Gray and Gabe Miles before, but touch on the other receivers and how important it is for Donald and Gabe to set that standard with the experience that they have, with the inexperience you have with other guys.
Well, I think there's obviously the learning curve and what the standard and expectations are, and the best way to learn it, I can sit and talk about it all day long of what we expect you to do. When they get to see one of their peers actually go out and do that on a daily basis, I think that really emphasizes and almost is the best way to learn to these young players what needs to get done. So I think, Donald understands he's the guy that's setting the bar, and wherever he sets the bar, that's probably the maximum that we'll reach this year, because as the young players look up to him, say, okay, this is what's expected, and that's how high I can take it. And as the leader, you usually don't expect anybody, the other guys surpassing the leader, and hopefully they realize that. I'd love a young guy to even surpass that and take over being the leadership. That'd be great for the future.
Dan, there's no better day than media day to talk about expectations. With such a young team, what do you tell your team when they hit the field this afternoon in terms of what this season can be like?
We'll see. The one thing you tell them, they're in control of it. They are in control. We got young players, and what they put into it, we're going to get out of it for this season. So the effort that they play with, the effort they practice with, that they prepare with, that they push themselves to develop, they're in control of it. And there's not. Don't be surprised in what happens. There's a lot of things we can't control, injuries, other things. I can't control other teams. But we can control ourselves, and what we put into it is what we'll get out of it. And they have got to go do it on a daily basis, every single day, every single play, work to be the absolute best that they can be. If we do that, I'll be honest with you, if we do that, it will be a successful season. You know, I mean, you could say, hey, how many wins is that going to equate to? I have no idea. But I'll be honest with you. If our guys come out, work as hard as they can, put in maximum effort every day, and push themselves every day to be the best that they can be, that's a very successful season. And that's all that we can expect.
Coach, what does Talendo Cleveland bring to that corners room?
Well, I think, you know, one is the maturity of a guy that's been around, that's played. You know, Talando's not the most vocal leader or most outspoken person, but when he speaks, he holds a lot of clout because I think of the respect that guys have. You know, we look around the locker room and, you know, to a lot of our fan bases and even the coaches, a great season that you had maybe in 2014 doesn't seem that long ago. Not many people played any games during that season that are still here. And he is one that did play in a lot of those games. So, you know, when he speaks, he's played in big-time games. He's played in games against top 10 teams. He's played in those type of matchups. So I think when he speaks, guys listen because he has that experience.
Coach, is there an update on Malik Deer's status?
Yeah, you know, right now, the trainers think he's ahead of schedule. He's not going to report to training camp because we don't expect him to be able to participate in camp. So he's here and going to continue to rehab all through training camp, but he's not in our 105 out there as a guy because we don't expect him to be cleared from practice for a couple of more weeks. You know, but as our trainers have said, we think he's a little bit ahead of schedule, and you know, it's something we're going to look at probably at the end of the month of well, we're not there yet in August. At the end of August to see where he's at, you know, and his ability to get on the field and play this year for us, and when that would be.
Coach, you had a lot of seniors graduate off that defensive line, whether it was interior or on the edge. Who were some guys that I know you'll know later after camp, but guys you see starting to take on those roles and guys you need to be productive this year?
Well, I think you see the real mature and growing in leadership roles in guys like Jeffrey Simmons, Corey Thomas, as really trying to step up and be leaders within the defensive line. I've seen Braxton Hoyette make a bunch of improvement, and I think, you know, he realizes it's time for him to take that next step, and he's got to be a productive player for us. Grant Harris has got to step up now and become a productive player for us. But also the young guys, knowing that you know, the opportunity's there for them, you know, with a Fletcher Adams and a Kobe Jones, that there's great opportunity now for those guys to step out on the field and go play. And, you know, one of the things that those guys always been are, you know, tremendous motor, effort, high energy guys, you know, that kind of bring it every day. And now, you know, they're getting that chance and their opportunity to go compete for playing time. And I'm excited to see how they're going to attack that through this training camp.
I've seen some head coaches around the league kind of pass off their play calling. How have you been able to balance that over the years, and how does that communication work with you and Billy and John?
Well, I think the one thing that's helped is we've all been together for so long. You know, you look at the offensive staff and the continuity we kind of have with guys that have been together for a long time. So that makes the room run very, very smoothly. You know, it allows me to do what I need to do to call the plays and prepare myself to be a play caller on game day without really having all of the offensive coordinator duties, if you will. Because, you know, I'm being called to do press conferences and whatnot, and a lot of other head coaching responsibilities. Where when you have guys, you know, when you have John Hevison, you have Billy Gonzalez, we've all been together for so long. A lot of the other things that have to get done, they're taken care of, and you know, and the job gets done because we've been together for so long that I might not be able to do everything that I would need to do as an offensive coordinator, but they're getting all that done. I'm not worried about being the offensive coordinator more than prepared myself maybe to be the play caller. You know, so I think we all kind of share those duties and split those duties up among several people to get the job done, and I think the familiarity everybody has with each other allows it to run very smoothly.
Dan, back at SEC Media Days, I remember Donald, when referring to the loss of Fred Ross, he referenced his leadership and his energy were the first two things that came to mind. When you look at this receiver group, are those the things that you're really looking for early on out of them to show that they have a void to fill and they know they got to step up a little bit?
Well, I think so. I think, one, the void is a lot of the playmaking he made. I think Donald's tried to done a great job of being that leader and setting that bar really high. You have a Gabe Miles, who's a hard worker, a Jesse Jackson, who hasn't been maybe a main guy, but as far as production on the field statistically, Bud is a tremendous worker every single day. So I think all those guys realize, hey, the leadership of Fred's gone, but we're going to pick up that part of it all. And there's a great opportunity, though, for the production, the playmaking that he brought. And I think that really is motivating and exciting to those guys that hey, they're going to have a much bigger role in the offense now.
At this time last year, you had almost a four-way quarterback battle going into training camp. How does your approach to camp change when you have the guy, Nick Fitzgerald?
Well, I think one, it a little bit easier for him. It's easier with the reps and how you want to base the reps because you're more preparing for the season than evaluating through the competition. We're getting Nick ready to really, I want to see him take another step now as a starter and be a much improved player. Then behind him, you have Keaton that you got to really accelerate to get ready. And then we have a couple of young guys here that are unproven that are either competing to be the 2 to 3 of who the next guy into a game would be and situationally to see behind them. So it does change. It'll give you a little bit more flexibility within the reps of how you want to do things, and that maybe you're not worried about getting the exact evaluation off of everybody to see who will the starter be. We kind of have a real good feeling on that. It is getting the right experience to guys to prepare guys for the season.
Back in December, you signed several junior college transfers, and of that group, I think 3 of them had already been in D1 before. How different was their transition compared to the other guys, seeing how they had been at this stage before?
Well, I think obviously a little different because our program's probably different than where they came from. But I think, having been in a Division I program and knowing some of the expectations and seeing what is out, what we do from day to day and understanding maybe the balance of class and practice and weight room and things that are here, a little bit easier transition for those guys, even though I will say, I think, I'm pretty pleased. Most of our guys that come in, the junior college guys that have come in, have really transitioned well into the program.
The idea of throwing freshmen into the mix for the kick return and punt return spots was mentioned in the spring. Who are some of those freshmen that are going to be given those reps?
We'll see today. They're going to get our freshmen. We'll put them in a lot of different situations and see what sticks early on. So I want to see. Here you guys go. Go ahead, run out there. Let's see what y'all can do. And today's our first day that we're going to really get to see any of these guys. The incoming freshmen. Do something new, I think they've run some sprints and lifted weights and done some agilities in the summer, but they're going to put a helmet on and do some football things today. So it'll be exciting to see what they can do football-wise within what we're going to ask them to do. And then, obviously with all young players, the biggest one is how fast they transition to the game, how fast they transition mentally and picking things up, and how fast they transition physically to the speed of the game at this level. Most of these guys, anytime they stepped on the field last fall, were the best player on that field and the most dominating player on that field. They're going to step on the field today, and they're not going to be. And to see how they handle that, if they are one of I don't know, they'll be the best player, but they'll be really good players, but everyone around them is going to be that level or better, and it'll be the first time they've been in that situation.
Dan, I might be reading you wrong on this situation, but, with Nick Fitzgerald, I know you've always been appreciative of his production on the field, but you've seemed kind of lukewarm about his leadership skills and everything. Has he improved in that area? Do you want to see more? Just where is he just in that facet of his game?
Absolutely. I think he's improving on it, but again, like as we said, this is his first time in this role that he's in now as the leadership, coming in, being a starter in camp. So, I want to see how he takes the reign in each stage. This was his first offseason as a return, as being the starter. This time last year, he was, as we've said, he was competing for the job. So this offseason, this was his first time. I think he's improved on it, but he's also going through a learning curve of how do I lead. This is going to be his first training camp as the starting quarterback. So I expect his leadership to be much better this year than it was last year, and I've seen that from him. But I still think he's going through the learning curve of being the leader. And, I think, for example, this time next year, I'd expect to be even at a much higher level because he would have been through it and said, okay, these are things I led well. Boy, here's some mistakes I made as a leader, and I got to go improve on them. That, the things he's doing, if he's making a mistake, it's the first time he's doing it. So he does something well, he's learning. I've been a leader the right way here. I've made a mistake. Okay, I've learned from that. Let's move on and try to build on it. So it's always a process and a learning curve for him. I've seen him work to try to be a much better leader, but he's still going through it as the first time as being the starter.
Dan, with all the sprints and all the workout sessions, what's the sense of your team, of their excitement level, even though they're going out before anybody else, to hit the field for the first time and realize they get to play football?
Well, I think everybody. This is what you do it for. Is this. If you're more excited about summer conditioning than you are about practice, we got a problem. You probably should be on like the cross-country or track team or something, right? Or state powerlifting, meet, I guess, I would think. Because, so I think this is what they work for. So I think the energy, the excitement to get out there field and go play football, all that work you put in is to do what we're about to do starting today.
You mentioned at media days using tight ends in the slot potentially. There's a lot of that in offenses now. Are you going to use any examples of other teams, college or pro, that have done that in the past, or are you going to try to do something different with it?
No, we always look and research, I think we always study and do, and you're always trying to, the spread offense, when we started doing this, however many years ago it was the foundation of it is to try to create mismatches, make the defense defend the entire field, and try to create mismatches on our players anywhere on the field. Make you defend all 11 guys from sideline to sideline and create positive matchups in our advantage. And you see a lot of, essentially that's a lot of the game of football. I know people get into like, hey, we have the exact system. Our system's to try to create mismatches and utilize players and talents, which is really, that's, I guess, the NFL system. That's what they do too. So, you'll look and say, okay, the New England Patriots do a fabulous job of that, of using the personnel they have, moving Rob Gronkowski around. I thought they were onto something really special a couple years ago when they had multiple really athletic tight ends out there, where you're actually you can be in 10 personnel and 12 personnel. 10 personnel like 4 wides and 12 personnel is 2 wides and 2 tight ends at the same time with nobody coming off the field because of the skill sets of the players you have out there. I think that's something exciting, and that's something that we're looking to do with the experience we have coming back at tight end and the talent level that those guys have.
Todd Grantham has a pretty direct way of going about instructing players, and players seem to really like that. How much of that influenced you bringing him on board here?
Well, you know what? It's interesting because, before really the interview, the Todd Grantham I know is what I'd see on the sidelines of game day. That's a pretty fiery guy, and maybe even at times controversial. But I loved the fire and the energy and the passion he had. But then when you met him, and you realize that's a competitive spirit coming out on him on game day. Him as a teacher, him as an instructor, it's slightly different, So I think he is a great, and I think that's why I think sometimes people look and they just see this one glimpse of somebody, but our players on a daily basis see somebody that is, an excellent football coach that understands the game and knows how to teach guys and get them in the right position, that's also going to hold them to a very high standard and passionate about it, but also has, maybe, the side that a lot of people don't see, which is, a mentor to a lot of these young guys. And you don't always see that, when you get in the building behind closed doors. And I think that's why maybe some of the outside highlight, if you put a game day highlight video of Todd together, sometimes you're like, whoo. But if you get with him on a daily basis, I think that's why the players have a very different feel for him.
Do you think your defense needs both?
Yeah, I do. I think the defense I expect, I always, I want people, when they watch your defense play, I want to have an intimidating defense. I don't have people, when they watch, there's 11 guys flying around, going to the ball with a little bit of chip on their shoulder and a nasty disposition and get after it. And I think when you're led by a guy that kind of is that way, your defense is going to play that way, and that's the type of defense that I want us to play. That, you go back when we've been great defenses. Those are the we have that. That's the type of defense that we have. That's going to come out, and play physical, hard-nosed football for 4 quarters, and. I think a great compliment to a defense maybe after the game is the other offense. What was that? We play somebody and their offensive kids are still in the cold tub 2 days later. We know that's Mississippi State defense. Good deal.